Heyo guys, what's up? Welcome back. It's Alex with TradeJournal, and today I have a little challenge for you guys. So on this chart right here, there are two descending triangle patterns, and I want you guys to go ahead, pause this video right now, and see if you can go ahead and identify these two descending triangle patterns. If you can't find them, don't worry, because we're going to be very quickly going over what a descending triangle pattern is, how you can identify them, and really what are the outcomes of a descending triangle pattern. So one last time, pause this video right now. I'll give you a chance to check out the chart, try to find it on your own, or try to find the two on your own. And at the end of this video, I'll go ahead and throw back on my drawing tools so you can see how I went ahead and charted this bad boy. And for everyone that doesn't really understand why you need to be identifying chart patterns, all chart patterns is a way for you to understand what you're looking at, put a framework around the price to identify key support and resistance areas, and find potential entries and exits for your upcoming trades. To me, all price really is just a bunch of human feelings thrown onto a chart. And chart patterns is a way for you to diagnose those feelings to understand what the general sentiment is around certain things. In the case of the chart that I showed you guys before, that was Bitcoin. So we're going to see if this descending triangle pattern can give us a sentiment about how people feel about the price of Bitcoin. So let's say the price is coming down a little bit, and then eventually maybe around this $200 area, we find some support. And in this area, then we have a little bounce. The price bounces up here, and then eventually a bunch of sellers come on, and then the price comes back down here. And again, we're at this $200 area where maybe some buyers were like, wait, I missed my entry there last time, let me go ahead and buy there. But then the price bounces up, and then before you know it, people are wondering, last time it didn't bounce that hard, so let me get out already of my position. And then the price bounces back here, and then maybe another bounce, but at the 3 or 4 bounces, things get a little weak. The first thing that I like to do when I identify patterns is I like to look for key support and resistance areas. And what we see here is some clear support, obviously in the $200 area of what we talked about. And then right here in this area, we have a high and then another high. And this is a clear indication that there is some sort of trend forming. So let's go ahead and identify this trend. Boom, now we structured the price a little bit. Now it doesn't mean that these lines are godsend or anything and the price has to listen to it at any means, but what they do allow is for me to get a better understanding of what might happen in the future. And at the same time, since a lot of these charting techniques are very, very simple, and exactly why I like this super simple charting techniques is because a lot of traders are looking at them. For example, a lot of traders are going to understand that 200 is a very important point. So what do people do? They set limit orders to buy at these areas so they can sell into the bounces. And that's why identifying these key support and resistance areas are so important. Let's look back at the chart. And in a perfect world, you would think here, okay, there's big resistance here, then there's a secondary resistance here. So maybe on the third touch, there's going to be another form of resistance here. And a lot of times that's exactly what we see. We see the price not being able to break out to the upside here, or maybe a little fake out in this area where the price tries to break out but then gets rejected. And then over here, every time the price comes down to this $200 level, buyers get chipped away. What does that mean? Let's say there's 1,000 orders waiting there, and every time the price comes down to this order, it maybe executes 50% of those orders, and eventually less of those orders are there, and then the price is allowed to crack through it. Maybe one person puts, or a couple people put a big sell order in there, and then finally all those buyers are gone. And when the buyers are gone, that's what traders usually refer to as a support line is broken. And when support is broken, oftentimes you see a big crash in the price because there's no one left to buy, and there's actually now new sellers of people that maybe bought hoping for a bounce and now are selling their positions because they are cutting their losses. They realize that their trade is bad and now they want to get out of their trade. So when a support line is broken, not just are buyers gone, but also new sellers are adding onto their or getting rid of their position, or maybe selling into the market, opening their positions if they're short sellers to take advantage of this new price swing. So what you often see is when the price cracks a thing called a breakdown bounce. And at least that's what I like to call it. Anyway, what it is when the price goes down a little bit, it breaks down, but then quickly, very quickly comes back up to retest this level to see if this support zone is now a new resistance zone. And support and resistance like to flip a lot. So when a support zone gets broken, it oftentimes becomes a new resistance. So then the price will come down here, or break down, bounce back up, and then before you know it, continue to the downside and find new support eventually before there's a bounce. A good way to find where price may rebound at these levels is simply to identify where in the past did price, have a big launch from, or where did price, originally break out of. So find those former support zones. So this is the classic bearish continuation pattern. The price is coming from the top. We have some consolidation here in a downwards triangle pattern. There's a bit of base, and then eventually the pattern breaks to the downside. And then there is a continuation, right? A bearish continuation pattern. The price keeps going down. And this also means that the price is coming from a downtrend. So we are already in a downtrend. Now there's another situation when there's a reversal signal. So a descending triangle can also be a sign that maybe there's going to be a pivot in the current price action. Let me quickly draw what that looks like. So let's say the price is coming up from all the way down here, and we have a nice little maybe exponential run, or just a really nice run in general. And then before you know it, the price crashes down here. And then on the bounce, it doesn't really get that high, kind of comes up here. And then again, it starts channeling in this area. So to wrap up this chart pattern, let me talk about these last 3 points. And the things you really want to be looking for is always just to keep things as simple as possible. So first, we have simple support and resistance. We are able to identify these key support levels and these key resistance levels. And then when the price makes a move, you want to look for big volume. If there's not big volume, it's usually an indicator that this pattern is not really playing out how it should be, and that there is probably a higher chance that there is not going to be that continuation if there is a downwards trend, or that reversal if there is an upwards trend. So that basically means when you have these volume candles down here, and we'll look at that a little bit later on in the real graph, you have these little volume candles which show you how much is traded. And when you have a breakout to the downside and maybe have a bounce, maybe not, it's not always guaranteed, then on that break you have some big volume candles, right? You have these big candles that illustrate that there's a lot of trading going through here, and probably that this big wall of buyers is now broken. It's really cool. Sometimes on the order book, you really see these big levels of buyers and then just sellers constantly chipping away at it. And then sometimes in just one or 5 big orders, that whole entire order book of buyers just completely gets ripped through, and it's a lot of fun to watch. So to me, I always like to look for confirmations at the end, and this breakdown bounce really is that confirmation I usually like to look for. I like to see the big volume come in. I like to sometimes identify some sort of bounce and then see a continuation happen fairly quickly. I don't really like to see the price hanging around these areas. So let me quickly outline what I mean by that. Okay, so let's say we break a little bit to the downside here, but there's no real crash, and we're just kind of making a little bit of headway in the volume. Maybe it goes up a little bit, but nothing too serious. And then you notice no really lower low forming. And then at this point, you want to be very careful if you are in a short position. And honestly, sometimes in these areas is when I like to actually enter some long positions, because the breakout to the downside was very, very weak, and that usually shows a sign that the bulls are back in control. And oftentimes in these areas, you'll see the price really shoot up once we come back above this support zone, which was a new resistance zone, but now acts as kind of a launch pad for the price to really shoot to the upside. Just remember, with trading, it's more of an art form, and getting a feel for how the price moves and always adjusting your thesis. You want to have a thesis, you want to always go into a trade with a strategy, but you have to understand that trading is not about being right or wrong. It's about being able to maintain good P&L. And all that chart patterns allow you to do is give you a framework before entering a trade by identifying key support and resistance zones and understanding what the general sentiment of the market is around a certain price. So let's go back to the Bitcoin chart and see if you guys were able to identify the 2 descending triangle patterns. Okay, so here we're back to the Bitcoin chart. I hope that it's somewhat lined up to what it was before, but let's go ahead and add my drawing tools and see how similar you guys were able to identify these triangles. All right, so here are the two descending triangle patterns. The first one is over here that we had in the beginning of 2018, or actually a larger part of 2018. And the second one that we are seeing right now since around July. So let's go ahead and zoom into the first one quickly. All right, I just went ahead and made the lines a little thicker so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so in this one, we had an actual upwards trend, and then the price started to turn into a downwards trend. And then eventually we found former support and we bounced off that support zone. And then again, we came back to this general support area, and then we bounced again, came back to this support area, bounced again, came back to the support, bounced again, came back to support, bounced again, and actually a few more times into this area. This lasted several months, and usually you don't see these descending triangle patterns going on for so long. I personally do a lot more day trading, and I find these also on the intraday charts quite often. So seeing something play out over such a long period of time to me is really exciting, and I had a really good time following this one. We could actually go ahead and move this a little bit further over here, and something you've probably already heard me say before if you are not new here is these blue lines are my long-term support and resistance zones. It's where we've often seen pivots in the past of price, and that's why these were already drawn. And then I went ahead and drew this green line when I wanted to identify a secondary area of support. So that's why there's kind of two areas of support here, and just kind of give a bigger focus to this blue line because that's ultimately what I used. I just really wanted to go ahead and identify that over here is kind of a secondary support zone. Something else that I want to bring to your guys' attention, right around here, there's some decent volume in this area, and then just in general, the price or the volume is going down. And then we had a huge spike of volume up into this area, and then again, the volume kind of sinks a little bit. So right here where we had the big break in price, the volume shoots up and then the price continues all the way down. So just remember, look for confirmations, look for some sort of maybe breakdown bounce, and definitely always keep an eye out for volume. Volume is super, super important. It means that a lot of people are on board with this trade, and this wasn't just a small order that skewed the chart. This is a big movement, and there's a much bigger chance that this chart pattern will be proven right and the price will continue a downwards trend. The second descending triangle chart pattern that we are seeing right now is, again, we are having this big movement to the upside with Bitcoin, and then at one point we weren't really able to get past this $14,000 area, and we had a big sell-off back to $9,000. And at this $9,000 area we had a huge bounce. Actually, this bounce was quite strong, 15-16%, and then again we came back down here, bounced off of it again, had somewhat of a nice double bottom, and what do you notice? The price comes over here and forms a lower high. That's a big sign that the bears are in control. And when we weren't able to continue a breakout to the upside, then we came back down here, and without a lot of surprise, and we talked about this on the Monday upcoming trades video, the price came back down here, we bounced again off this level, and then there was a good amount of time where we just followed this trend line almost perfectly for quite some time. And this is actually around the time we exited some of our longer term positions. It wasn't long after till the price really broke down hard. We did see a nice little increase in volume, so I definitely want to point that out a little bit. We had the volume really sinking low, and then again a nice little bounce in volume, so that is always a good sign in terms of is this chart pattern really holding true? Remember guys, you always want to be looking for some sort of confirmation, and volume is usually the best way to identify a confirmation of a chart pattern. Also, this time we had huge consolidation in this area, so I went ahead and extended my two lines that I drew in this area out over here, and you can see the price eventually came back into this area. It's going to be a really interesting next few days and weeks to see if this price area will hold. If it does not hold, there's a good chance that the price will continue to go down, maybe to $7,000. I don't really believe we'll see $6,000, but who really knows? Like I said before, technical analysis is not about predicting the price. It's simply about giving you a framework to identify where good entries and exits might be for your trades or investments. So that's all we're trying to do here. We're not really trying to guess which way the price is going. We're just trying to be ready for whichever way it does go. Please give this video a like if you found some value in this video, subscribe if you want to see more, and share it with your trading buddy. Till next time, stay safe and make some awesome trades. Ciao, ciao.